All right, y'all. So let's talk about the big news. The big news that everybody's been talking about for the last couple of days. I'm going to give you my take on it. Now, first, let me brush everybody up. I'm sure most of you know these facts already, but still worth going through it for those of you who don't know them. So Axios has an article here, how Elon Musk won Twitter. He ended up actually buying Twitter. So they say the following: Twitter's board had a choice: continue to fight Elon Musk or take the path of least resistance. It picked the latter, declaring victory and going home. Twitter is a very tough business to manage with critics at every turn. The board decided to make it someone else's problem. Twitter's board made a completely defensible decision. It took an all-cash offer at a decent premium without a rival bid at a time when the consumer tech stocks are sagging. But there were also legitimate reasons to reject Musk. Twitter originally welcomed Musk into the fold, offering him a board seat when he disclosed a 9.2% ownership stake. Okay, so we'll go on with this in a second, but I believe the sale price was $44 billion. He offered them, what was it, 38% above the stock price. And the financial moves that he made here were interesting because he basically made them an offer that they couldn't refuse. Like, it literally may have been illegal for Twitter's board to reject the offer because they're legally obligated. They have a fiduciary responsibility to their shareholders to do what's best for the shareholders. And if somebody's coming in and offering really way above what it's worth, and then the other trick he had up his sleeve is if they rejected him, they could have went to war with him because he could dump his 9.2% ownership stake and then everything plummets. And then it's like, so you had the opportunity of, cashing out really high or tanking the company if he decides to turn around and sell his 9.2% ownership stake. So it was a really interesting, financial jujitsu move here from Elon Musk. So they say, but then Musk changed his mind and launched his takeover effort. Twitter turned cold, adopting a defensive measure known as a poison pill. Musk's announcement last Thursday that he'd secured financing for this bid via a combination of his own cash and debt from Morgan Stanley seemed to be the factor that turned the tide back in his favor. Before that, Twitter's board could fall back on the argument that Musk's talk was bigger than his walk, like when he tried taking Tesla private in 2018. Board dissent also moved into the open via tweets from Jack Dorsey, Twitter's co-founder, former CEO, and longtime admirer of Musk. So Dorsey comes out and basically says, I support Elon Musk's vision for the future of Twitter. And, of course, there was massive dissent among employees at Twitter. We still don't know exactly what happened behind the scenes, but do know that Twitter's board capitulated. Musk never raised his price, and Twitter also was unable to secure a Go Shop agreement, which would have allowed the company to solicit superior bids. So there were no superior bids. He was offering basically way above what it was worth. Now, Twitter was a publicly traded corporation. Now, under Musk, it's going to be fully private. So that's interesting that you're going back to a fully private company. It doesn't sound like the board got any operational concessions from Musk, such as maintaining employee levels or the ban on former President Trump. During an all-hands employee meeting after the deal was announced, CEO Parag Agrawal and board chair Brett Taylor basically replied to such questions with, "Ask Elon." Then they continue here, everything you need to know about Elon Musk's takeover of Twitter. Twitter agreed to Elon Musk's takeover bid on Monday. Twitter's board had a choice: continue to fight Elon Musk or take the path of least resistance. Okay, we already read that part. Here's what Elon Musk is getting for $44 billion. Twitter's most precious asset isn't its technology, its business, its data, or its employees. What makes Twitter unique is the attention it has won from the media profession. Before he announced he had made an offer for Twitter, Musk had talked about the things he would want to change about the social media platform, from adding an edit button to limiting content moderation. So there's a list of things he wants to do. He also wants to, I don't know if they point this out in this article, but I've read in other articles that he wants to authenticate all human beings and purge the bots. And then, again, he said a number of times, edit button, less content moderation. They say Musk's views on free speech and, to a lesser extent, climate science and solutions may help determine if climate researchers and activists disband the communities they put so much time and effort into creating, Andrew Freeman writes. Okay, so I'm getting ahead of myself here. They say climate scientists and activists nervously eye Musk. Look, what I've witnessed with Elon Musk's takeover of Twitter is that everybody's lost their damn mind. So you have people who are supporters of Elon Musk and people who generally are on the political right who seem to think Elon Musk is going to save the platform and that Elon Musk is going to usher in a wonderful era where we have our free speech rights protected on Twitter. Now, I don't know. We're going to wait and see if that happens. But of course, you have people on the left who are panicking, and some who are deactivating their account, and some who are like, how can he do this? This is crazy. I don't understand. Look, my take on it is, you got to wait and see. Like, you have to see what he actually does. Right now, we're still in the phase of, it's all talk. Now, I will say, if he's really serious about this idea of ushering in free speech on Twitter, and making it what it should be, there is something you can do. You can effectively regulate it like a public utility. Now, there, of course, would be a legal process to get to the point where you regulate it like a public utility and expand First Amendment protections, but he doesn't even need to go that far. He can just announce, here are the policy changes, and I, as the private owner of this company, I'm going to regulate Twitter like it's a public utility. So I'm going to say the First Amendment applies, and, you still can't do direct threats of violence and targeted harassment and doxing. Like, there's going to be a limited list of things that you can't do. But if he says, our new policies are strictly around the Constitution and the First Amendment, and we're going to treat it like a public utility, well, then he wouldn't be just all talk. He would also be walking the walk. So, but if you have a situation where one of the richest men in the world, if not the richest man in the world, now single-handedly owns the public square, well, that's not really a good state of affairs. So we'll see what he does. Now, again, my take on it is that I'm just going to wait and see what happens. I don't know if he's actually going to usher in some of these policies. Some of these policy changes are good. There's a good reason to want to eliminate bots. Everybody understands that. There's a good reason to want to authenticate all the people on the platform. The edit button is debatable, but it seems to be a majority-held opinion that people want that. I think the less content moderation is desperately needed, by the way, particularly because we could point to so many high-profile cases of the moderation being absolutely insane. Like, keep it real, the Hunter Biden laptop story, when that came out just before the election, and then they banned not only the tweeting of it and sharing of the article, but they suspended the New York Post account. They had the article. And you couldn't even DM the article to other people on Twitter. They took a massive news story, which is totally pertinent to the election, and they did electioneering. They just hid it. That's insane. Regardless of what you think about that story. And I think the parts that cover Hunter's personal life are not fair game. I think that's a violation of his privacy. Hands off when it comes to his drug addiction, all these other personal problems he has. But the corruption stuff was definitely legitimate. And they just banned that story. So, and then you have, for political reasons, people being targeted. Massive Antifa accounts. There was a purge of Antifa accounts. And I think less content moderation makes sense. Again, that doesn't mean you could dox people. That doesn't mean you could do direct threats of violence. That doesn't mean you could do defamation or libel or slander. These things are illegal. It also means, you can't post yourself committing crimes. You can't just post yourself murdering somebody or post some child, what. You can't do that. And that's still going to be the case. But the idea that, the problem with Twitter is that they're taking down too many illegal actions. No, the problem with Twitter is that they've far crossed the line into, we're going to go after people simply for their politics or for things that are massively borderline cases. And I don't think that's fair at all. So on paper, a lot of the things he's calling for are things that I support. But having said that, again, I'm just agnostic. I want to see what he actually does. I want to see what things he runs up against in the real world. When push comes to shove, let's say you purge all the bot accounts, but Elon Musk has a lot of bot accounts that he doesn't even know that there are bot accounts out there that are pro Elon Musk. If he catches wind of how many bots there are that are pro him, is he still going to want to get rid of the bots? Now you're butting up against reality. Now it's not just, candidate Elon Musk on the campaign trail. Now it's governing Elon Musk. So we'll see what he does. I'll tell everybody, don't be so convinced until you see evidence of how he's actually going to run the company. So don't be so in favor of this and don't be so against it. You have to, be objective and wait and see what he does, and then we can judge accordingly. Now, having said all that, I'm rooting for him. I hope he does the right thing. But there is some reason to believe that, the thing that he says he cares about the most, he doesn't really walk the walk on that. He talks the talk on free speech, and you guys know that's an issue I care about deeply. But there's a lot of evidence here that maybe he's not as committed to it as he pretends he is. So this is from Mediaite. Extreme enemy of free speech. Tesla critic says Elon Musk bullied him off Twitter in 2018 by calling his boss and threatening to sue. This is something that we've seen time and time again. Trump, for example. How many times have we seen this? He loves to, one of the lines he goes to in his speeches all the time is like, I'm so pro-free speech. I'm the most pro-free speech person you've ever seen. And then, of course, there was that instance where he sued Bill Maher because Bill Maher made a joke that hurt his feelings. This is the guy who in one breath says he's pro-free speech and then says we should ban flag burning and punish it with like up to a year in jail. On the one hand, he says I'm pro-free speech, and on the other hand, he says we should open up the libel laws like they have in the UK to go after the media. So now those things are massively contradictory. You can't be pro-free speech and then have all these other positions and things that you've done. And that's who Trump is. He's a massive hypocrite. He doesn't actually mean it when he says he's pro-free speech. What he means is I'm pro-free speech for people who agree with me and the things that I do, and I'm against it for people who disagree with us. So they just want to be the censors. So with Elon Musk here in his personal life, look, this is just reporting, and they have the details. I'll read through this article a little bit for you. I hope that even my worst critics remain on Twitter because that is what free speech means. Elon Musk tweeted, good. On April 25th, 2022, after the company's board accepted his offer to buy the platform for $44 billion. But on July 23rd, 2018, he was singing, or in this case, ringing a different tune. Lawrence Fossey, who was working as a portfolio manager in Manhattan at the time, that Monday would have been an otherwise unremarkable day at the office, but for a phone call from an irate and litigious Elon Musk. A colleague relayed the billionaire's message. Quote, Elon Musk says that you're a very bad person and you're writing bad things about him. Fossey recalled the colleague explaining, he's going to have to sue you and he's going to have to drag our boss into it. Fossey was incredulous, but quickly realized this was no office prank. The CEO of Tesla Motors had actually called his office and threatened to make his life miserable by threatening litigation. His offense? He criticized Musk online. Quote, it was hard to believe, Fossey told Mediaite by phone last week, but in fact, that's what happened. Wow. Beginning in 2015, he wrote dozens of articles critical of Tesla on the popular crowdsourced finance site Seeking Alpha. Quote, I would take a close look at its financial statements and write about things that struck me as wrong, he explained. Writing under I don't know what that word is, a Montana Skeptic. Oh, it's, just a different name that he uses. Montana Skeptic, Fossey dissected company filings and provided wonkish analyses to make the bear case against Tesla, which did not respond to a request for comment on this story. He penned dozens of missives, but some stand out more than others. Fossey wrote he believed Tesla overstated its profits and papered over losses. In his statements, he also wondered if Tesla was hoodwinking Nevada in its deal with the state to make its electric vehicle batteries there. Another time, he questioned Tesla's claims about the safety of its vehicles. In another piece, Fossey declared New York State had gotten a raw deal after investing nearly $1 billion in a factory for Tesla to build solar panels as part of its solar energy business. Fossey was also active on Twitter using the Montana Skeptic moniker and tweeted links to his articles as well as other thoughts about Tesla and Musk. Eventually, one pro-Tesla online sleuth outed him as the man behind the account on Twitter and Seeking Alpha. A little more than a week later, Fossey said that's when Musk rang his boss. What especially irked him was Musk's first line of recourse. Quote, he had never once attempted to contact me to say, I think you got something wrong in your article factually, Fossey said. He didn't email me or have anybody from Tesla do that. Whenever I discovered I had made errors, I would always correct them in the article up front in a note that was prominent and make note of my error. After the phone call, Fossey told employers he would stop writing at Seeking Alpha and deactivate his Twitter account. He stated that while Musk had no valid claim, quote, I'm not going to drag my boss into a lawsuit he shouldn't have any part of. With one weird but nevertheless heavy-handed phone call, Musk silenced a prominent online critic who bid readers adieu the next day. Fossey said Musk stopped threatening him after that. The Fossey episode is worth revisiting in light of Musk's pending acquisition of Twitter, especially considering he's being hailed by many, particularly conservatives, as a free speech crusader who will stand up to the censorious ways of big tech. So look, that's Elon Musk embracing censorship when it involves him personally. He wants to muzzle somebody who's criticizing Tesla. Now you could say, well, hold on. What if those criticisms from this guy against Elon Musk, what if they're not legitimate? Like, what if Musk is right on the facts of those things? Even if that's the case, you don't get to, threaten a lawsuit and try to muzzle them. There's plenty of stuff, at being any semblance of a public figure to any degree, there's going to be people who say shit about you that's crazy and not true. It happens to me all the time. I would never in a million years think of, threatening to file a lawsuit against somebody because they're saying things like that are negative against me, even if the things are really not true. It's par for the course. Now, by the way, having said that, the guy's criticisms are actually pretty milquetoast. Like, it's just standard business practice criticisms. Like, that's all it is. And he had such thin skin that he cracked down over that. Now, look, a fair response to this would be, okay, so Elon Musk is a hypocrite, and in his personal life, he doesn't abide by, the principle of free speech. But now we're talking about he's running a company, and it's about the policies that he sets from the top down. So he could still believe in the policies of free speech and implement those while also being a hypocrite, and he doesn't really abide by them in his personal life. All I'll say is, that would be the best case scenario. Like, if that is the case, I'll take it. Because really, I care more about the policies on Twitter than I do about any personal stuff involving Elon Musk. But having said that, maybe that's a little bit of wishful thinking. Like, usually if you act like this in your private life, something, your public life will also mirror that to one extent or another. Now, again, we'll have to see, and I'll be very happy if Musk puts in place free speech policies, and I'll be the first one to tell you guys about it. But, in terms of his private record, this stuff is kind of clear. Now, you might say, well, hold on, this could be a one-off. Well, I regret to inform you it's not. So Joshua Potash says here, Elon Musk keeps tweeting that he loves free speech, so here's a thread which is a few of the countless examples showing he couldn't care less about it. 1, there's the time he called Vernon, this guy has receipts all the way through, by the way, as you'll see. There's the time he called Vernon Unsworth, the man who helped rescue 12 boys trapped in a mine in Thailand, a pedo guy, and paid $50,000 to an investigator to dig up Unsworth's life. Why? Because Unsworth called his failed attempt to help the boys himself a PR stunt. Wow. So he was saying, remember when that happened? These kids were stuck in a cave, and Musk was like, I'm going to save them, and he came up with all these ideas. And then this guy chimes in, and he's like, this is just a PR stunt. Shut up. Let the experts, do their thing. And then Elon Musk basically tried to ruin this guy's life. Then there's the story of Josh Bernal, who was fired 6 days after posting a YouTube video of a Tesla accident. Wow. So this guy was an employee at Tesla. He posted a video of a Tesla accident, and Musk fired him. He fired him for showing that. That is, keep it real, man. That's the definition of cancel culture. That is exactly the thing that Musk says he hates. So you're firing somebody over, some uncomfortable truths. That's unbelievable. Then there's Martin Tripp, a technician at a Tesla plant in Nevada, who blew the whistle on the company. Musk allegedly hired people to hack and spy on Tripp after he cast doubts on Tesla's environmental credentials. Wow. So, look, he's got a vengeance streak in him, this guy does. Musk also is anti-free speech when it comes to labor organizing. Oh boy. Tesla worker Richard Ortiz was fired for trying to organize with the United Auto Workers, a move that was declared illegal by a labor board. So, look, this is the point that people bring up all the time, and I think it's a fair point. You say you're in favor of free speech. The real test of whether or not you support free speech is, will you bring back the people who really disagree with you? Now, maybe he will, and if he does, I'll be happy, and I'll support it, and I'll give him credit. But, is there going to be a Tesla Union Twitter account? How's he going to react to that? It's yet to be seen. If his record to this point is indicative of anything, it's that he won't take too kindly to that. Firing somebody who's doing labor organizing, he's a union buster. That's what he is. Then there's the time Tesla asked China to censor comments that were critical of the company. Wow. Now, this is one that's interesting, for a number of reasons. Jeff Bezos came out and said, oh, did the Chinese government just get to control the public square a little bit when Elon Musk bought Twitter? Hilarious coming from Jeff Bezos because he has business with China. And it was been reported in Reuters, this is a well-known fact. And he's like, oh, is this guy controlled by China? And it's like, you're to some extent controlled by China. What are you talking about? But look, it's true. There is a relationship between the Chinese government and Elon Musk. They do have business together. And when there were critical comments of Tesla in China, Musk reached out to China and said, can you use your censorship power to stop people from saying negative things about Tesla? That is again, that's the polar opposite of freedom of speech. That's the polar opposite of freedom of speech. Again, the caveat is, hey, maybe when he sets the policies for Twitter, the policies will be pro-free speech. That would be great. But in terms of how he acts in his personal life and his private life and his business life, there's really not an open question. The dude likes vengeance, retaliation, revenge, and he's willing to use authoritarian tactics and try to muzzle people in the process. That's just a fact. And again, this guy, I don't know who this guy is, so I can't say whether I like him or dislike him, the one who's doing this thread. But the reason why I'm showing you this thread is, look, there's receipts all the way through. And I clicked on these, as I was prepping for this segment here, I clicked on all these. There's a Bloomberg thing, New York Times thing, another Bloomberg thing, CNBC thing. Like, this is all reported. All right, let's see if there's any more here. There's also the time Musk tried to out an anonymous Tesla critic and skeptical investor who goes by Montana Skeptic to their employer. That's the thing we just covered for Mediaite. He also has tried to use Twitter itself to suppress worker speech and organizing, a move deemed illegal by the NLRB. Wow. The union busting thing, you guys know that drives me crazy. That makes my blood boil because I'm all about unions. These are just a few examples. We're sure to see many more as soon as he takes over Twitter. His free speech bravado is just a mask to hide the ways he suppresses speech that goes against his interests. Okay, so look, I'll say it one more time. If he implements policies at Twitter that are pro-free speech, I will come out here and give him credit, because that's the thing that I care about the most. If he regulates Twitter like a public utility, I don't think he's going to do this part. He might have more pro-free speech policies there, but he's not going to say, I'm going to officially regulate it like a public utility, like I'm going to try to abide by the Constitution, et cetera, et cetera. But I will give him credit if he goes more down that road. You got to be fair. But having said that, again, there's reason for skepticism here. And you're not like, I don't know how to get this through to people, but there's no billionaire that's coming to save us. like it's so funny, people who posture as like anti-elite. And then as soon as a billionaire who agrees with their politics comes along, it's like, great, wonderful. Now we're good. And anybody who doesn't like him is just a stupid triggered lib. You got to be more sophisticated than that in your analysis, man. The real answer is to actually make Twitter a public utility because it is the new public square. Instead, we got private ownership by a billionaire. I hope he goes down the path of policies that are better. He may not. But again, in his background is questionable stuff, and don't be so naive and so blind that you can't accept any criticism when it comes to this guy. He's got a lot of supporters out there. He's got a lot of fans out there. I get it. I understand it. But you got to be reasonable, man. Like, you have to be willing to accept that the facts are the facts, and he did what he did, and he shouldn't have done any of those things. But it's yet to be seen what he will actually do in terms of the policies of Tesla. And I hope that he's not just all talk. I guess we'll find out soon. Hey, y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop. And watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.